In the time after King Arthur, suddenly last winter, the battle ends as Percival's war plan of daring, patience, and friendship succeeds. Losses and wounds are few, and war horses and men must be tended to. There is no celebration yet, there is only weariness and numbing cold. Winter returns and her icy breath reaches all. A night peers out into the darkness. Wrath of the gods. Joy is a strange bird, just so much fragile bone and feather. It seemed nowhere to alight on this frozen night, as Ern lent his warmth to cold castle stone. 100 hounds or more could not keep Ern and Maude apart now were they to meet. But the dogs do keep the retreating Vikings at bay as their paths cross Maude's out in the woods of Camelot's villages. The winds carry the sounds of the dogs' warning to the castle itself, and to the cold ears of Ern, king of Thule. The wrath of the gods continues to pour down on the defeated Viking heathens in the form of winds now gusting to gale strength and sleety breath laden with the cold, icy sting of retreat. The Vikings gaze at the forest huntress Maude, but do not realize that she is soon to become their queen and mistress in New Scandia. The storm intensifies, and she sees the last of them as they knock on the door at Valhalla's ice palace. Alarmed by the intensity and rage of heaven's thunderbolts, the hounds scatter in the near hurricane-force winds. Maude, already worn from the days-long journey into night, collapses into a hunter's stick shelter. Her dogs seek protection in the deep woods but do not find it there, for winter now plays her worst hand. There is no refuge. In the night's darkest hour, Maude's shelter completely blows away. She struggles on, traveling with the wind at her back as it veers around to the north. The chronicles relate that more than one gives his precious body heat and heart strength to the shivering night. Second sight. A solitary knight, yet weary and worn from war's injury and love's yearning, nevertheless departs Camelot's crumbling fortress late into this midwinter's night.
I must walk, for it is too cold for horses' war-torn and unprotected leg bones, nor will the horses venture into a storm. But I continue, for good sense and love do not always mix.
As Ern crosses the drawbridge, he notes that the moat has finally frozen, and not a day too soon, for during the war, Percival had ordered valuable salt into the water to keep it from freezing and thereby allowing the Vikings to cross it. Ern walks across his last battlefield and notes that it too has been salted. Taken into the earth now was the salt drained from the sweat of warriors. How rare is a moment's peace.
One last quest to perform, as the winds try to warn and push me back to the safety of the castle. But I head into the wind, and the storm marks me for her very own.
Well, down the road now, Ern's eyes meet those of a man old and coatless, a man seemingly older than time itself, but somehow strangely familiar.
Ern looks to him with a knight's gesture that says, "May I assist you home?"
Indeed, I am almost home.
Ern is startled when the man reads his mind and says,
"Hurry, boy, she's waiting there for you, and don't underestimate the north wind that brings her to you, and remember this, it sends you to your death as well."
Love search. Ern searches the city's outskirts in utter darkness that night, for no torch can stay lit in the storm except the feverish glow of his love quest. However, the search is also apparently in vain. Half alive, Maude somehow reaches the stables near the town square and lies down in the straw, wavering between death and sleep.
So cold, so tired. Is this the end?
Half dead, Ern is now hopelessly lost in the blizzard. He misses Maude by just a few minutes, and now, nearly frozen to death, his life's candle nearly out, he must, after vanquishing all other types of foe and fiend, concede defeat to the unbeatable storm. He falls to the snow and covers himself with it for warmth from the ice winds, but the snow will not stay put in the wind, and his life wick begins to flicker and spark out.
Must keep moving?
Ern gets up but can only seem to travel in circles since the snow is blinding. The sight of one of Maude's hounds spurs him on, but alas, the hound is too scared to guide him and it disappears in a swirl of snow. And once again, the winter begins to claim another lover in her cold embrace.
Maude, where are you?
The storm howls, indifferent to the cries of a man in love, as Ern's strength wanes and the cold begins to claim its victory. Sleep and death.
The death wind is from the north.
Ern readies himself for death. But then the old man's words come blazing back to him. The death wind is from the north. Only by the grace of the steady north wind's direction and the old man's words does Ern deduce and find his way south to the gutted town and its square. He finds but scant shelter in the pillaged White Hart Inn. Barely alive, he realizes that only flame and sleep can save him now, for fire is winter's fruit and rest is her bounty. With fuel gone to the war, the inn is cold, colder still without the warmth and blushing beauty of Maude.
I'll burn my bed in the fireplace and fall asleep on the hearthstone.
At the door, the great reaper waits patiently to collect winter's spoils. Meanwhile, Maude's favorite hound finds her and lends his warmth to her. Slowly now, the balance begins to tip for Ern and Maude, ever so slightly, from death to death's younger brother healing sleep. The reaper departs, that wonderful time when one is freed from all worry and treated to the priceless spectacle of one's dreams, the ultimate gift from the gods. Sleep, sleep, when we can do as we please, a time when all debts are paid. We are only awake for but a few of eternity's moments, for just a few ticks on her timeless face. Twilight time. Neither Ern nor Maude awake until the next day's evening twilight. The storm is long gone and is just a memory now. The day, though nearly over now, had been bright. Helios has warmed the hearts of the victors. Twilight now welcomes all. Twilight, that graceful hour after sunset, when people love to stroll the square's pavement. Foot soldiers now stand at ease beneath the lamps as the lights of men and lamps flicker back to life after the war. Twilight, that magical, mellow hour of the day sought by lovers after chores are done. The hour which by its tender blending of the fading western light with the glimmering candle lamps answering one another in the windows, casts a veil over the crudeness of the town, restoring the injuries of time and war. Ern paces the smooth pavement of the square, adding but a little to the centuries of wear to this mirror of life, the square, where all must pass eventually. Then he sees her. She sees him at the same instant. The old man sees them both, and the old man leaves to seek out the powers of the night, from which he will again ask for youth. For without youth, of what good is immortality? The riddle solved. Maude had loved Ern for himself long before he had been revealed to her as Crown Prince of Thule. Also, long ago, Ern began a quest to prove that Maude's heart was gold, even though she was a known relative of Morgana, the witch that had played a part in the trapping of Merlin in his crystal cavern forever. Maude had survived all witch hunts and finally, with Ern's help, had at last proved her worth plainly to King Arthur shortly before his death. For years before, I had sent Ern away time after time only out of my love for him and for his career. But she was more dear to him than his career, and Ern was convicted of treason upon seeing her, and so had to flee Britain. Maude's vindication arrived on Salisbury Plain with Merlin's dream appearance to Arthur. It was a dream that was the final inspiration before that great war against the Saxons. Ern also arrived that day, won his spurs, and was so knighted by Arthur, all misunderstandings being resolved.
Merlin, where are you? How I need you now. If only you could see me wield Excalibur one last time before we must return it to the gods.
It was then that Maude turned against her mother, Morgana, adding all of her magic and power, and thus becoming mortal, to that of her father Merlin, allowing him to escape spiritually, if not physically, from the eternal cavern, and to appear to Arthur's men in their dreams as an inspiration, a dream to some, but a nightmare to others. Fulfillment. Ern and Maude met in the middle of the square, together at last, melting into the night, and melting into each other, dissolved by their love.